Okay, coming up, Shawn Simpson sitting right beside me. We're going to talk more about hockey. But what we did the other day, Shawn, in anticipation of the lockout occurring on Saturday night, which in fact it did.
You guys did some homework.
Yes, we did. We sent our cameras out to get people's opinions and some interesting responses. Here's what you had to say about the whole lockout thing.
They make lots of money. Come on, you know, it's multi-million dollars a year, and they're complaining about. That's shame, you know.
I don't know. I think Gary Bettman is being a little greedy, and although I think the players have a fair point, and what they're putting forward, it seems everything they're trying to advance in the agreement, Gary Bettman just seems to have none of it. It seems like the GMs are being really greedy.
Like Bettman there, he has to go, that guy.
Well, I'm frustrated that it's with billionaires and millionaires that can't figure it out together.
The ones that they're hurting are their own fans, and that's not right.
And what about the people who work for them?
That's
the
right.
The stands, the concessions, the people who clean, they're all out of jobs as well.
Exactly.
I really wish that they'd have a season, that's for sure.
Yeah? Do you side with the owners or players?
I'm with the players on this one.
All right, so there's the opinions of a few. A lot of well, it's tough to say. There seems to be 50-50, blaming the players, blaming the owners. I tend to blame both. I mean, they got us into this situation. What do you make of it?
Well, again, it's
Your
a difficult.
assessment of it.
The system is obviously the failure of the ownership. I mean, they've spent the money, but when you overspend any business, you have to correct yourself after the fact. So
and that's
I
what
don't
they're
have
doing?
an issue with that. It's just correcting it. You know, some money's going to have to come out of the system, probably about 10%. And again, the issue with it now is that you've got a salary cap that's too high, and you've got a floor that's too high. I don't mind the salary cap necessarily. Let the bigger teams spend, but the floor is going to have to come down a little bit. There's just too many teams that can't afford a $50 million cap.
Well, why do they keep signing these deals, though? This is bothering me. That at the last minute they want to get a bunch of deals done before the agreement expires, the current collective bargaining agreement. And they're loading up players with these massive contracts. So, you know, some people say the players are greedy. Well, if in fact the players are greedy, to me then the owners are idiots because they keep feeding them these. Why wouldn't you sign a contract that's huge?
Yeah, but it's a free market. And again, guys, the top players always make the money.
Yeah,
so that's never going to change any system. What ends up happening, all that money goes to the top guys, then the bottom guys get squeezed. And that's what the system is about, correcting itself. And that's really what happens, though. The lower end guys, these big contracts, it's always going to be there. And the game is healthy, the money's there. The issue is you've got 10 teams that are doing very well. You got 10 teams that are breaking even, and then you got 10 teams that are struggling.
Can we break this down in layman's terms? Because we may not have insider type viewers on this program.
Yeah.
What's the bone of contention here?
Well, again, I think you've got, when you look at the situation, the thing that makes hockey players great is they're competitive, they're resilient, all these characteristics. They're in for a fight. And on the other side, you've got ownership, you've got big business, you've got people that are used to winning. It's really about the idea, the fundamentals of it. And it's about rolling back the salaries. And it's about, I think, a feeling with Gary Bettman and overall that this is kind of being pushed at the players, you know, and kind of the way it's being handled from a PR standpoint, you know, and you know, diplomatically. I think that's more of the issue. My issue I have right now is that based on the way the U.S. economy is and some of the other things that are happening, I don't know if this is the time to pick a fight. I'm not taking a side, but I'm looking at it, and if I'm a player, you know what, do I take a little rollback right now? Do I get an agreement, or do I go into a big fight here? And if we do this and we go through another lockout, not only am I going to lose in the short term as a player, but I'm going to lose long term. And I appreciate that they're loyal to the union. I appreciate that they want to stick together. But you've only got a small window to make some money in your career, so you've got to think about yourself a little bit if you're a player.
No question about it.
That can be, you know, and you know, a lot of people point out the effects on other people. We did get some comments from people today, and they make valid points, and there's so many points to make here. What about the employees that work for these organizations that were laid off effective Saturday night? They'll be laid off until a new contract is signed. Seems like to be all about the fans, the same fans that flip on the team on a dime if they lose a game, specific to Ottawa fans, is what Allison points out. This lockout doesn't just affect the owners, players, local businesses, and fans. There are people without jobs right now because of the greed of the NHL and NHLPA. Nancy says this, we may have to sell our firstborn just to buy a ticket when this mess is over. Wonder what message this sends to youngsters lacing up for minor hockey. That's a good point. And Mo says a bunch of millionaires whining about making more money. Shame on both players and owners. All this is going to do is take more money from fans who can't afford it. Is that fans' concerns about paying more for tickets. Is that valid?
Well, it's a ticket-driven sport, and that's the issue. You've got a high risk. You've got other sports where you have TV contracts, you've got money supporting it, where if I have a down year, the business is going to be okay. I'm taken care of, especially the National Football League. But in hockey, you're kind of living year to year, and that makes it difficult. And on people getting laid off, I worked for Washington, I worked for Toronto. I will credit them. They looked at this kind of like, you know what? In the volume of a business that's spending $70 million on player salaries, they didn't lay anybody off in the office. Some people had to take a pay cut. You had to do some things to kind of keep it going. But I hate to see that. You hate to see the little person getting pushed to the side. And like you say, imagine what the economy in Canada for the businesses out there, what it means for 40 game nights in the winter.
You get that,
and it's
right?
a trickle-down effect to the whole economy locally.
It's amazing. Okay, another concern I have, not for Canada because I don't think we'll ever have a problem coming back from that, but when you look at the MLB and the strike that they had in the 90s and how many years that had an effect on Major League Baseball, do you have any fear of that having an effect even in your big markets in the States? The game is not as solid there, even in spots, I think anyway, like New York, where you've got so many options.
It's huge. 1994, the New York Rangers won the Stanley Cup, and hockey was at its height in the United States. We just recovered from it. Think about that. That's 18 years later. And if you go into another situation like this, that's exactly what's going to happen. There's markets. The problem is some of these owners are better not to have hockey for a year.
Yeah.
Columbus at the last lockout, Doug McClain mentioned the owner had to write a check for $17 million just to keep in business. So some of them are looking at that. You know what? I'm better to have the door shut. But I agree with you. It hurts the game. Right now, the game is very healthy in the United States. You've got New York, you've got Boston, you've got Chicago. The key markets are doing very well. Well, your softer markets, the Phoenixes of the world, the Anaheims, it's always going to be a struggle unless you have a good product.
Right.
But the real markets, and in Canada, obviously, our economy is thriving. And that's the thing from the last lockout you have to remember. We had a 20% increase in revenue before we ever played a game. The Canadian dollar went from 80 cents to equal with the United States.
Right.
So that's been a big part. That's something no one knew coming into the salary cap system. And that's been a big part of the inflation of the cap itself.
That's a great point.
We got to run. Any guess as to when this gets fixed?
American Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I know. You've been saying that the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I like American Thanksgiving.
I'm with you.
I am American, too. A little citizen. So.
Well, there you go. Are you really?
Yeah.
You're a good Canadian boy. Who you trying to get?
Canadian at heart.
Shawn Simpson is on the Team 1200 every afternoon with a fella named Dave Gross. Grossy, they like to call him.
The Drive.
The Drive is the name of their show, and it's a fine, fine program. I enjoy it. I do daily.
Yeah.